14 hours without food, without a bathroom, and not knowing if it could last until midnight? Well, I have. That night was one of the hardest moments of my life, but also one of the most meaningful and proud moments I have ever had. And that night, I learned what persistence really means. When I was 7 years old, my mom, my dad, and I went to Times Square in New York City to watch the New Year's celebration. Watching the New Year's celebration in Times Square had been my mom's dream for a very long time. To get a good spot, we arrived very early, around 9:30 in the morning. When we arrived, we saw barricades, police officers, and about 20 people waiting there. A few minutes later, a police officer standing in front of us said, "You're very lucky. You're the first group." When we heard that, we were so excited. Soon, the barricades opened and we quickly moved forward. As we passed through multiple layers of security and moved farther inside, I became more and more excited. We were finally entering the place we had spent an entire year preparing for and learning about. At last, we reached the barricade right in front of the stage. It was the exact stage I had seen in TVs and in videos. Everything felt incredibly exciting. Around us, giant screens and bright lights were shining everywhere. People from all over the world had gathered there. Some people were singing, others were dancing. The whole place felt like a huge festival. At that moment, I thought, this is going to be fun. I'm really glad I came. But soon, I realized something important. Once you enter the viewing area in Times Square, you cannot leave your spot. You cannot go to the bathroom. You cannot buy food. And if you leave, you cannot come back. As time passed, waiting became harder than I had expected. Time moved much more slowly than I had imagined. And when I was starting to feel tired, something worse happened. It started to rain. At first, the rain was light, but little by little, the rain grew heavier and the wind became colder. My hands became freezing cold and I started to shiver. Seeing me shivering in the cold, my mom looked at me with a worried face and said, "Minzo, let's go back to the hotel. I'm already happy just being here." I was very cold. My hands were shaking. I felt really tired. But inside me, I felt something stronger. I had already decided. I wasn't going anywhere. Tears filled my eyes. Not because I wanted to leave, but because I wanted to stay. I looked at my mom and said, "No, I'm not leaving. I want to stay until the end." At that moment, even though my body felt weak, my heart felt stronger than ever. At that time, it was around 2 p.m. We still had 10 more hours to wait. The rain kept falling, and I became more colder and more tired. What made it even harder was the sleepiness from the jet lag. My family sat down on the wet ground and leaning to each other and dozing off from time to time. Even though we were wearing rain ponchos and boots, my pants and socks were wet. For a 7-year-old child, waiting that long in the cold rain was really difficult. But that moment, I remember something important. Watching the New Year's countdown had been my mom's dream for a very, very long time. And I didn't want to give up on her dream. So I stayed. I didn't move. I didn't give up. Because I had already made my choice. As time passed, The sky slowly became darker and night arrived. The rain was still falling, but the atmosphere began to change. As midnight approached, more and more people filled Times Square. Songs and cheers echoed everywhere. Then finally, the countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Thousands of people shouted the numbers together. 7, 6, 5. The giant New Year's ball slowly starts to drop from the top of the building. 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! People hugged each other and celebrated the new year with smiles and laughter. Confetti fell from the tops of the buildings, and the song New York, New York played loudly. My family shouted, Happy New Year! Then I shouted loudly, Mom's bucket list, success! When I looked at my mom, I saw that she was quietly crying. As I wiped her tears, she leaned close to my ear and whispered, Minza, thank you so much. I love you. And that moment, I understood why staying mattered so much. I felt proud of myself. I had just gone through one of the hardest moments of my life, fighting the cold, the rain, and the sleepiness, but I stayed until the end. But at that moment, I realized something important. Sometimes we are much stronger than we think. And that night, I wasn't just waiting. I was practicing persistence. Persistence means continuing even when things are difficult. Angela Duckworth calls this grit, which means not giving up. Others say that when we keep trying, people can grow stronger and better over time. Looking back, that night was exactly that kind of moment for me. That night, I learned that even a child can be stronger than she thinks. And with the love and support of family, we can overcome difficult moments. In life, everyone has their own rainy days. You will probably face many rainy days in your life too. Sometimes there are real rain, but sometimes there are challenges, failures, or moments when we feel like giving up. But those moments can actually make us stronger. In Korea, there's a saying, after the rain, the ground becomes harder. Just as the ground becomes stronger after rain, we can become stronger after difficult moments. That rainy night in Times Square taught me something important. It taught me persistence. Persistence doesn't mean things are easy. It means you keep going even when things are difficult. And after that day, something in me changed. When I face difficult moments, I try not to give up easily. Instead, I try to hold on a little longer. Even when I practice skiing in the freezing weather, even when I struggle with one difficult math problem for a long time, even when I wake up at 5 a.m. rubbing my sleepy eyes to study, I remember that night and I tell myself, I'm the person who stood in the rain for 14 hours. This is nothing compared to that. So when you face your own rainy day someday, remember this. Rain does not last forever. And after the rain, you will discover how strong you really are. Thank you.